At DePaco Credit Union, we value your health and happiness as much as your financial well-being. We encourage the volunteer spirit by providing DePaco employees with the tools and resources to help grow our communities and support the causes that matter to us. We believe that giving back not only strengthens the places we call home, but also enhances our overall well-being. Well-being is the key to a life worth loving. So when you think about yours, remember that DePaco can help you be well.
All things Hawkeyes. Your all-access pass from the sidelines to the postgame. Iowa's News Now Sports presents Eye on the Hawks. Sponsored by DePaco Community Credit Union and Pin Seekers.
Hey everybody, welcome to your Wednesday edition of Eye on the Hawks. Mitch Fick, Owen Sebring, Mike Howell here, Director Erica behind the scenes running the show today on this Wednesday ahead of one of the biggest games we've seen at Kinnick Stadium in quite some time, certainly saying something as all eyes, or at least a lot of eyes, are going to be on Iowa City and Kinnick Stadium on Saturday. Number 9 Oregon comes to town to take on the number 20 team in the first college football playoff rankings. Thanks to everybody to tuning in for Eye on the Hawks. Brought to you by DePaco and Pin Seekers. Doing things a little differently today here at the DePaco studio at Broadcast Park as we do remind you, if you want to really catch up on what the players said ahead of this matchup between the Hawkeyes and Ducks, you're going to want to go to the Iowa's News Now YouTube channel. Got 20-plus minutes of pregame conversations with those guys. A little more from Trevor Lauk, who was repping for Mason Richmond's Seattle Seahawks on Tuesday. Talked to him about what he learned from Mason and his 4 years as a starter on the line. Talked with Jacob Gill about what makes him such a great run blocker and what Mark Gronowski has brought to this team in 2025. Certainly you'll hear from the quarterback as well. But we lead with that and those social plugs. Of course, Eye on the Hawks on X and the Iowa's News Now YouTube channel and Instagram page and the Facebook page as well, where we're sharing reels and little snippets of the pod. We have a special guest today who's not in studio, but talked to him earlier in the day, and a full conversation is also available on the Iowa's News Now YouTube channel. He's the guy that's going to be with us as we tee it up, courtesy of Pin Seekers. You know, Big Noon Kickoff is coming to Iowa City on Saturday for this matchup. That is hosted by Rob Stone. We got some time with him earlier today, talk about everything Hawkeyes, a little inside baseball with the sports broadcasting business, but he knows this team a little bit, having covered them in 2021 with Big Noon Kickoff, covering them in 2022 when Michigan was in town. So let's hear a little bit from Rob Stone about what he's seen since he and the crew covered this team in Ames for the second game of the season and what they could bring to the table in a huge matchup with the Ducks.
What have you seen from this team to put themselves in a position where, boy, if they go out and beat Oregon Saturday, Iowa's got a real good path to the playoff here?
Well, starting Saturday, it's the most important 7-day stretch in Iowa football in a long time. You know, having Oregon at home and then traveling to the West Coast to take on USC, those are your two best win opportunities that remain on the schedule. And if you look at Iowa's wins, there's nothing that really jumps out at you that says, oh, let's hang our hat on this victory. I think they're kind of getting a lot of credit for hanging tough and giving Indiana their closest game of the season. And that's not how Iowa wants to be remembered, but it gave them the ability and to move up to number 20 and sit there. And that's not a bad resting spot sitting there at week 1 of the college football playoff rankings. But if you get that home win versus a really respected top 10 Oregon team, you're talking about, a 5 to 6 point potential jump. And now you're inside that top 15 and you're saying, oh, we only got a few more spots to crawl. And people are going to fall out. It's going to happen. And then you go back to back with a ranked opportunity against USC. I think if you're Iowa and you're Kirk Ferentz, you're saying 20 is fair. We have everything left in front of us, which is really what I love about the college football playoffs right now. Typically a 2-loss Iowa team, it's written off, and you're talking about, I don't know, the CarQuest Bowl, or you're talking about something in Orlando or a Bahamas, or whatever those bowl games are that don't really carry the merit that they used to. But now you're saying, hey guys, here we are, first Saturday in November, second Saturday in November, and we got a shot to get ourselves into the college football playoffs, and not just a shot, a real shot, and a shot maybe, probably doubtful, but maybe getting yourselves to the Big Ten championship game. I think Indiana and Ohio State are clearly on a collision course with the schedule that remains for both those programs. But if you're Kirk Ferentz, I think you're loving life right now. You're going to have a big audience. You got another sellout at Kinnick Stadium on Saturday. You got a big-time opponent that has a lot of respect. And I think people have put Iowa in a position where they're saying, we value you. Now we've given you the ability to earn it, to earn a spot into the playoffs, and it starts Saturday.
Again, just a little bit of the conversation I had with Rob earlier today. We'll have more from him here on Eye on the Hawks. He now hosts the Triple Option podcast with almost Hawkeye, 2009 Heisman Trophy winner Mark.
Could have been.
Could have been. We'll probably talk with him. We get some FaceTime with the rest of the crew on Friday. But Coach Urban Meyer, also part of that, the Triple Option podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts. Search Triple Option podcast on YouTube and give them a listen. They had a reaction to the CFP rankings that were released last night, and we'll take a quick look maybe here at those real quick before we move ahead.
They're on my screen, Eric, if you want to bring them up.
They look like. Because Iowa in there at number 20, and then a few other Big Ten teams surrounding them. Of course, USC 19 coming up next week as you focus on the task at hand. Michigan's on a bye. Right behind Iowa at 21. Washington in there at 23. They're dangerous. We'll talk about them in our picks. But what were your guys' initial reaction to the rankings at large? There was talk maybe Indiana could be number 1 ahead of Ohio State. But there's a path to the playoff there for the Hawks. All you got to do is beat a number 9 team and then go to the West Coast and try to win out there, which is always tough for the traditional Big Ten squads.
Yeah, that was my initial thought, was just how much this plays into the favor of Iowa and their schedule, kind of like what Rob was saying in terms of just having everything in front of you, everything playing out just like you wanted to right now at this point if you're the Hawkeyes. I was pretty surprised, honestly, that they got as high as 20 in the CFP polls. I thought, maybe they'll get in, maybe a 24, 25 spot and then have some work to do. But, boy, at number 20, you've only got to climb, 8 spots to get to that number 12 spot. And with the number 9 and 19 teams coming up and with a Nebraska team that maybe could be ranked by the time they face Iowa, that's a really favorable schedule for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, my first reaction, actually, Mitch and I were watching it here. We were in late last night for the local elections. We were covering that, and we were watching the show. And I think Mitch said right beforehand, you predicted 23, right? And then once Washington went off, you're like, okay, maybe not.
I wondered, yeah. Because I said last week on the bye week,
Yeah.
I said between 19 and 23. I was talking to our colleague David Ike Holt earlier on Tuesday as well. We're like, yeah, they got to be somewhere around like 22, 23. And so you saw it go past, and you go, oh, like maybe not. And then you just wondered, because it felt like the committee was going to be a little more favorable to the Big Ten than the AP and the coaches poll have been. And boy, they certainly did. Hey, check out the Big 12. BYU and Texas Tech back-to-back in there in the top 10. That's, they've got
Utah's not far behind.
Data points and all that. Yeah, it's, there's a lot of Big Ten teams back there playing for a lot.
I shouldn't say shocked. I was surprised. I really thought after all the chatter last year about Indiana and the strength of schedule, I know Iowa's got a decent strength of record. I thought they were going to really weight that more heavily than I think they should, but they honestly, I don't think they did. And maybe, this is the first rankings. There's going to be several rankings to come out, so maybe that changes throughout the season. But when you look at the schedule, though, like you said, 2 ranked teams ahead of you. Iowa gets those 2 wins. You have the close loss against Indiana. Like, that close loss against Indiana only counts if you have a couple of ranked wins. And that's what you need to do, and that's during your conversation with Rob, he's like, this is an important 7 days, because you think of 2 weeks, but it's actually 7 or 8 days that they're going to be playing these games.
Yep.
Huge opportunity for Iowa, and if you drop both of them, the season looks a whole lot different.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, Nebraska once you get if you can get past Oregon, if you can go out west and beat USC, you've got a Michigan State team that's sideways, to borrow a phrase from a former basketball coach in Iowa City, and then a Nebraska team that who knows what they're going to be without Ray Lewis. It might not be, are they ranked on Black Friday? It's, are they struggling to stay bowl eligible and stay in that race? There's just a lot of things that have changed very quickly, and certainly that's November. You can have all the dice set up, or the dominoes set up, whatever analogy you want to use there, and things can get off track real quick.
But, boy, I mean, if it plays into that favor, I mean, we're talking 3 wins ahead of ourselves right now, so we don't need to talk about the Nebraska game all that much, but nothing would give Nebraska any more pleasure than keeping Iowa out of CFP. Same goes for Michigan State, who, talk about a trap game if Iowa wins their next 2, and then they're looking ahead to Nebraska. That's perfect prime position for Michigan State.
Man, and I'm not going to win, but I think Michigan State really does stink this year. But Iowa fans like to talk about, what if Mark Gronowski didn't go down against Indiana?
It's going to be a big what if for a while.
Dylan Raiola didn't go out. They might beat. I mean, chances are they beat USC next week. It was a tight game.
USC struggled, yeah. I mean, that passing attack, Mayava got it going on the ground, which was great because USC is already really great on the ground. But, yeah, he a struggle there, but it'll be interesting to see what USC looks like. We'll talk about them coming up here in a little bit. They got a tricky game back home coming up this week, but we'll look at that in our picks. Thanks to Pin Seekers for teeing it up with us. But let's take a look at Oregon by the numbers because, to everybody's point here, let's focus on the task at hand, shall we? Because that's a hell of a task, numbers-wise. The number 5 scoring offense in the country, total offense in the top 10, rush offense in the top 10, passing attack, quote-unquote, only 52nd. This is a team that ran for 400-plus against Rutgers en route to 750 yards of offense against the Scarlet Knights. Go ask them in Piscataway how things went against Oregon. And the defense, they're no slouch either. 6th ranked in scoring, 4th overall, 30th against the rush, the number 1 pass defense in college football. Let's hear from Iowa's defense about what they're stacking up against Dante Moore and a potent offense, and a little bit from Mark Gronowski on the film prep, and Coach Kirk Ferentz about the spotlight in these moments at Kinnick Stadium.
We're playing the Big Ten, so every game's really important. I think the environment is going to be really, really exciting. It's going to be sold out and lots of fun. But, in terms of the magnitude of each game, we really approach each game the same. So in terms of preparation and being ready to go, it doesn't matter if we're playing UMass or Oregon. The level of intensity shouldn't be dictated by our opponent.
What did Wisconsin do well against them? I mean, they kind of held them in check, I guess. Were you able to observe what they did that you guys can maybe replicate?
I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me is they had dudes just flying around the field. You got guys just coming from one side of the field all the way to the other and making a big play on the sideline. So I think that's the biggest thing that stuck out to me watching that tape is how they flew around in the first half, and schematically may not have always been right, but made up for it with some of those effort plays.
I always tell myself this is the biggest game of my career. Is the next one you're about to play, and seriously, I'm just excited for the opportunity. A few weeks ago when we were playing Penn State, it's a game you dream about. Playing Minnesota in a blackout at home, that's a game you dream about. Playing Oregon in a blackout again, at home in Kinnick Stadium, those are games that you dream about playing. And I think the biggest thing, you just got to soak it in. And you might be a little nervous because obviously it's important to you, but you just got to just take it one game at a time and just know they're humans too. And it's just about how good can we be and how good can we play together.
Tim was also talking about Warren and Billy, just what they've been able to do to watch Oregon for a week before even talking to you guys, to get a more fully painted picture when it's a defense that does everything that they do and has the athletes they do. Just how much of a benefit is that, particularly in a bye week where you need all the prep you can get?
Yeah, it's huge, and especially when we're maybe on a Sunday or Monday at the beginning of the week, maybe Coach Lester hasn't watched that much film yet about the next team because he was more worried about the last game that we were playing. He sometimes lets Coach Warren lead some of our meetings, and then he can kind of really dissect and know everything that we're going to be facing. And by the end of the week, obviously Lester's watched enough film for the game, but it adds just a huge benefit because he can explain it in much more in depth because he's already seen it multiple times over, and it just gives them all a head start on the week. And we're already so ahead this week since the bye week, especially, but even just in weeks prior that we can end up having an off day on a Thursday that we normally do, which is different than most teams, which is really nice.
Yeah, anytime you get a chance to go against a premier team, which these guys are, it's a great measuring stick, and you realize a lot of things can go wrong. Coaches have a better ability of doing that than hopefully the players, but when it's all said and done, it's just great to have an opportunity to play. I coached at Maine, coached at Worcester Academy, and those are all special too. But this is a really, it's just a great environment in Kinnick. Anytime there's a marquee matchup, if you will, and we have had a few of them over the last couple decades, and it's always special.
And some special moments coming to Kinnick Stadium, certainly, that we've seen in these last 3 games and the last 2 big wins against Penn State, and then there at Minnesota. I think it was Scott Docterman said that he thinks this is the biggest game at Kinnick since it's November, playoff potential and everything. The biggest game since 2004 at Kinnick, when it was Iowa-Wisconsin. Winner gets a share of the Big Ten. I don't know if we want to share our perspectives and how far those goes back, but this feels huge coming up this weekend.
I mean, even for you guys as Iowa fans who would have watched this team so closely in 2015, do you think that's true? Because even though those games maybe weren't a top 20 matchup or whatever, I forget who they would have played in November at Kinnick in 2015, but this feels bigger than any of those games when you do have like a undefeated season on the line?
Minnesota's up there, 2015. That was they came in 9-0. That was more on Cohen's little blackout comment there in a little bit, but that was a game that had been planned to be a blackout since like August. They released like the trailer with the alternate jerseys with Rick Ross's Hunter Black Coffins playing, and like that already had like big hype just because, they're going to play Minnesota under the lights and it's going to be a blackout. That'll be awesome. That was a big one because they won that, went 10-0. The next week they hosted Purdue. They had to spend all night getting the snow off the field, and they would go 11-0 and win the West. And obviously went to Lincoln the next week and went to 12-0 and basically had a playoff quarterfinal game in the Big Ten title game against Michigan State. But I think in this new 12-team playoff era, a couple years removed from having an offense or a team where, Torrey Taylor punting the ball, Rob and I talked about that too, being the MVP of the team, to now like you got your dude at quarterback and you've got this moment. There were no questions to Kirk on Tuesday about, you haven't beat a ranked team in 11 or 12 straight, whatever it is. There was nothing about that, and I have to think that factors in that Iowa's got a quarterback now that so many people, fans, players, media, just have seen not blink, and I wonder if that factors in. I think that's also a variable in how big this game is, because it does feel like this is a game Iowa can win, even as the spread is almost a touchdown. It feels huge, and in this era of college football where you got a chance to go play in a playoff, and they'd probably have to travel, and then maybe you get if you win, you play one of the teams in the bye. Just in this era of college football, it feels huge, right up there with anything that we saw in 15.
It certainly feels like their most winnable top 10 or ranked game in the last handful of years. I mean, I don't know if you guys would disagree with that, but it's like, thinking about the Michigan Big Ten title game in 2023, it's like, I didn't go into that thinking Iowa had any chance of winning that game. And so, when they played Ohio State in recent years, it's like, there's just no way.
Indiana, they were top 10, right?
Yes.
I didn't think it was going to be that close, but then
it ended up being close.
In hindsight, you look back and you're like, could have won that one.
In terms of the week leading up to the game,
sure.
Is this the game that feels the most winnable for, let's even say a top 10 opponent in the last few years?
I would say so. Going back to the 2015 year, the Minnesota team finished 6-7, even though it was a hype day, and that was the same day that had that wrestling meet, right?
Yeah, that was the not crossover Kinnick, Grapple in the Gridiron is what it was called. Iowa, Oklahoma State, and they had 46,000 folks in Kinnick for that too.
Yeah.
That was wild, but that was such a weird fourth quarter against Minnesota, because that final score was 40-35 in a game that did not feel like a 5-point game, but
Iowa was always like getting 10 points ahead, and then Minnesota scored.
Minnesota would score.
LaShawn
Daniels had that long touchdown run, which I think Kirk brought up earlier this year, of like he was kind of supposed to go down, kind of like Mark against Penn State was supposed to go down so we can maybe kneel this thing out and be done with it. But he scored, and then Minnesota came back again. That made it 40-35. I don't know if this feels like the most winnable, because it's still Oregon's got the aura, and they've got Dante Moore, who was a highly regarded recruit that went to UCLA and started half of his true freshman season, then backs up Gabriel last year. And, he's been a Heisman contender this year. And when he's on, he's on. They run the ball so well. And I don't know if it feels like the most winnable, but I think you watched what they looked like against Northwestern, and they won it in Evanston. But Northwestern rushed for 200 yards against them, and you saw what Indiana did to them. I think it just feels like there's an opportunity maybe you wouldn't otherwise have on a stage like this, if that makes sense. Like, it's still the Oregon allure is still pretty potent, though, because you know real quickly they can maybe do what they did to Rutgers. Now, Rutgers' defense is one of the worst in college football ranking-wise. I think they're 100th of a yard per play away from being the worst yards per play defense in America. I think Iowa's a little better than that, but they put up 750 on them. Like, they've got a bunch of dudes that can go 60 yards real quick.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels with, I think, Oregon's schedule to Iowa's, because at this point, you look at their wins and you're like, who is their best win and who is Iowa's best win? And you'd probably say Minnesota for Iowa. And when you look at Oregon, you might say Northwestern, unless you think Penn State. I mean,
Penn State in the moment was great, yeah.
It was top 5.
Yeah.
Top 10 game.
Huge game.
But looking back, it doesn't look so great now. So when you look at it that way, like you said, Oregon went undefeated last year in the Big Ten before the playoff game.
Defending champ, yeah.
And you think of them differently, even when you look at the parallels in the schedule. I feel like I'm one of the only Hawkeye fans that is nervous for Saturday because I think I can see scenarios. Well, I guess I'm seeing more of the excitement, like this is going to be it, this is going to be it. And you mentioned no one is talking before the game that I was 0-11 last time they played top 10. Yeah. It will be the story if they lose on Sunday, I think.
Yeah.
It's just going to be another notch in the loss.
Right.
But Oregon's really talented. They're a really well coached football team. Dan Lanning's one of the best coaches in college football. I'm not going to say there's shame in losing that game.
Right.
I'm just, hoping that the Hawks finally get that W.
Isn't there something special or something to be said for the sake of you feeling so nervous this week, you feeling so nervous this week, if that's your emotion
nervous
as well?
every game.
Do you actually?
I'll be nervous with Michigan State that they, put a stinker up there. And
it's just because there's so much on the line. It's not necessarily the opponent. It's the stage. It's the opportunity.
And that's what I'm kind of getting at is just that come November – at least the last few years since I've been here, there has not been maybe nearly as much on the line for the Hawkeye team. We weren't, even though we're playing an expanded CFP situation right now, 2 years ago, it's not like we thought, boy, that team's going to be in the CFP eventually. I know a Big Ten title game was on the line.
There's more grace in the Big Ten West, too, to get some tiebreakers, to give yourself a chance than there is in this new Big Ten when you have Oregon, Indiana, who thought a couple years ago that Indiana would be one of the best teams. But no, I know what you mean, and I do think and it's been a while since November. The parameters were a November home game, right? Because obviously the Big Ten title game in 2015 had some huge stakes. There were other games. When you look at it, even back in 2010 when Ohio State came in, that was one of the top 10 team came in November. Iowa already had 3 losses at that point, even though they're super talented. They lost at Northwestern the week before, and they lost to Arizona and Wisconsin, I think. So, sitting at 6-2 in November, it is a huge game. Yeah. So I would kind of tend to lead to that, to your opinion, of one of the bigger games.
It just feels like a little bit of a different atmosphere than we've had the last 3, 4, 5 years with Iowa.
It's opportunity meaning opponent. I think that's the big.
Sure.
Yeah. It's November. Even 15. It was. I think they played. Was it Indiana before the?
Yeah, they were at Indiana.
Minnesota game. Yeah, which that was. Beathard flying through the end zone and coming up and dragging his back leg. You're like, oh no, CJ's out. What's going on? And then he powered through because CJ was a superhero that year. But, yeah, this is – okay, hey, there's a path to the playoff. Just beat the number 9 team in the country and then go west and beat the number 19 team in the country in a road trip that's always tough. And they're going to have an extra day's rest because USC plays on Friday this week. And, again, they'll be part of our picks. But there's a lot on the table. And it's what you want in November. You want the fun moments. You want the opportunity, and certainly a big one at Kinnick, 2:30 kick.
What do you guys think a recipe looks like for Iowa to win this game? What's the absolute number one thing?
Indiana without Mark getting hurt.
Yeah.
I think that is. You heard him a little bit just talking about what do you learn from Indiana? Heck, what do you even learn from Wisconsin going to Autzen? And it was 21-7, and Moore got knocked out in the second half with a bloody nose or broken nose or something, and it was pouring rain. It was brutal conditions, but you heard Jaden just bust your tail on every play, which is the standard in Iowa City anyways. But if you can do, and I don't know if we'll see zero blitz like we did against Indiana a lot, but Dan Lanning praised the hell out of the front four for Iowa, and you're coming off a game against Minnesota where you got to the quarterback a lot, and Aaron Graves even said, we know we can dominate if we get our opportunities, and I think that's what you're going to have to do. That's what Indiana did so well against Oregon, is that they took a team that can run a lot of different ways, and they just stuffed them, and they put pressure on it and got to the quarterback and stopped guys at the line of scrimmage and made the tackles, those things that Iowa has improved with you in the last month or so. I think that's the key, is you take everything you learn from Indiana, and maybe we keep talking about trade-offs in this podcast. Do you take the Indiana loss if you know you're going to beat Oregon? And maybe that's how this ends up playing, is that, hey, you took some lumps, but you got some lessons against the Hoosiers, and now you got an opportunity to go remedy them against the Ducks.
I think it works in Iowa's favor, certainly, that Oregon is such a good pass defense team, because as Iowa's shown this year, they can certainly win games throwing for 76 yards or something. So as long as Gronowski stays healthy, boy, they definitely do not need to throw an interception on the first drive like they have in a couple of their games.
That would hurt.
I think that
Becoming a little Stanzi-ish.
I think that's going to be one of the biggest things, just like Mark staying in there and not making a bunch of mistakes, and Iowa carrying the momentum of forcing turnovers as they have the last handful of games. Like, they would need to pick Dante Moore off maybe 2 or 3 times to have themselves in a situation to win this game.
I do think, though, like, I agree with you that I don't think Mark's going to throw for 200 yards to win the game, but I do think he's going to be efficient and, like, convert some 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 6s through the air. And I know Oregon has a really good pass defense, but he's going to have to convert some of those, and I'm not saying deep balls. Just sustain the drives, maybe win the time of possession. Definitely don't lose the turnover battle, because then I think it's over.
Yeah.
Can they run the ball against their rush defense is pretty darn good too, But I guess, their schedule too, 3 of the teams that they played, their rushing attacks are kind of not great. So, like we said with Iowa last week, is it the schedule? Is it, the talent? Is it a mix of both? I think it's a mix of both. But it will be interesting to see what Iowa's offense can do against that Oregon defense.
Surratt had some great success for Indiana against the Ducks, and you wonder, as Reese Vanderzee gets back, gets healthy, similar body types, just the size, and if there's some one-on-ones, does he, again, they're not going to throw a lot, but when the opportunity arises, he caught one where John Nestor can't play any better defense. Are there opportunities maybe there to run some curls on 3rd and 6 and get some space and get some opportunity there? Well, speaking of opportunity, Drew Stevens rising to the occasion far more often than not, despite some struggles this year. He is now Iowa's all-time career leader in career field goals made, 70 of them, setting that record earlier this season. We finally got to talk to him. Since that time, he is our Hawkeye highlight this week. Talked to him a little bit on Tuesday about his relationship with Nate Kading, conversations they had after Drew passed him for the all-time record, and a little bit more insight on that long field goal attempt against Penn State, the 66-yarder. Drew talked about that a little bit as our Hawkeye highlight. Let's spend a few minutes with him.
Have you talked to Kading at all since you surpassed him?
Yeah, he texted me like right after, because it's an awkward feeling when you do that to somebody. You're like, oh dang.
Hi Nate. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's friendly banter and stuff. Like,
what kind of relationship have you had with him just since getting on campus?
Just like that. I kind of look at him as like what he is. I would assume like the old vet who like has done it all before. He's been in like a lot of good situations too, because like his like first 2 seasons probably weren't what he liked, but his last 2 were like really good. So obviously everybody's career is a little different, but it's just nice to know that he's been through the highs and the lows.
Do you lean on him a decent amount, or do you guys talk often, or?
I guess that depends, like, how you view often.
Sure.
We probably text, like, maybe, like, twice a month, honestly. Yeah. So, but, we still text,
What's one of the bigger lessons that he's talked to you about, whatever, kicking, life, any of those things?
I'll say the number one thing that, like, resonated with me when he, like, or when I had lunch with him was take it, like, one game at a time. Like, he really emphasized one game at a time. We got one game seasons, just 12 times. So it's just another way to look at, like, hey, like, regardless what happened last week, it's like it's history. You can't do anything about it. It's just another way to look at it like that. Sure. I'm a big fuel the fire guy. Like, I really like a lot of things. Like, I feel like I've said before, maybe I have, maybe I haven't, that like it's harder for me to deal with success than it is to deal with failure. Because when I'm like doing good, like it's really hard for me. Like, it's something I worked on to not just be like, okay, let me just try to just maintain this rather than like keep pushing and getting better. Versus like if I have a bad game, like I would go kick after the game in here if I could, honestly.
You talked about kicking like really long kicks last year after Michigan State. I think it was like a 57-yarder that you attempted in East Lansing.
58.
Yeah, what's different when you're like 8 yards further back attempting a 66-yard field goal? What's the sight picture look like? What's your mentality?
Well, I will tell you, it looks really messed up being that far back. But it's nothing I haven't done in practice before though, so it's not like I'm seeing like something foreign. The only thing, like, I will say, like, when you get that far back, there's a bit of a mindset difference. Just because, like, there's not a lot of room for, like a toe ball or, like a faster spinning kick. Like, you guys were at the game, I'd assume? Or, like, you know how there was the first attempt?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what like a toe-y ball would look like. Like it lands a little shorter, it's not as powerful. But, I mean, if you like know kicking, like if you could hear the thud on the second one, like I bet it would have like at least gotten there, you know. But I mean that's the part that gets everybody, is you don't really like know how like small like it looks from that far back. Like it's not really necessarily like a power thing. It's like it has to go that much straighter too, or you just gotta aim it like that much better.
Great insight from Drew, our Hawkeye highlight this week. You saw, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, on the graphic, he has 109 extra points. How many do you think Nate Kading had?
I feel like he was. I can't remember. I feel like I've looked into.
Set me up. This is a trick question.
Yeah, I feel like I've looked into Drew's stats recently, and I didn't seem to think that he was getting all that close to his record. Is it like 170 or something?
I'll go 171.
Oh, Price is right. Backfires on Mike. 166 extra points.
Darn it! I should have done the other way.
Close.
Which tells you
Should have done 169.
Drew played in a time where Iowa wasn't scoring a lot of touchdowns for a while, and Nate Kading played in a time where Iowa scored all of the touchdowns for a while.
Yeah,
Which
the
that's
2002
isn't that
team
wild?
was just
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite things growing up. You know, just that season. Yeah, and that 3-year run too. I mean, they were scoring a lot. I guess a little bit less in 03, if I remember correctly, and then 04 was a lot. So
And then he talked about the struggles Nate's first year. Nate was like 12 of 20 his freshman year for field goals. So, yeah, don't let your present circumstance dictate your approach to the rest of it, because things can work out for you.
4 was Slitcher, right?
Kyle Slicker. Slicker the kicker?
Yeah, so I guess that wasn't Kading, but I think he was done in 03.
Yep, he graduated in 03. Of course, the Groza Award. Went on to a heck of an NFL career, and now doing well as a businessman in Iowa City. He's got his own Corridor Business Journal podcast. Robert Gallery was on a recent episode. Go listen to his conversation with Robert Gallery. It's an immensely important one. More great insight into Iowa City from Rob Stone here. Back with him again. He has been covering college football for like 30 years now in various roles. He was a sideline reporter at one point for ESPN. Shared a little bit about that in this next snippet from our conversation, as well as Big Noon Kickoff's first visit in 2021, the first time he really got to be away from Kinnick Stadium, taking in Iowa City. So here's a little more about Rob Stone's time in Johnson County, Iowa, covering Hawkeye football.
Just what were your expectations coming in, and what were those first impressions of Iowa City on a game day?
Expectations were shattered, were crushed, annihilated. And that had nothing to do with Kinnick Stadium, because I'd been to Iowa before. I knew how passionate that fan base was. I knew how electric that stadium was, but I didn't really know much about Iowa City and the campus. And since that trip back in 21, which was the last time there was a top 25 game at Iowa, I've been raving to people, like, hey, we want to go road trip to whatever. I live out in the West Coast, so I know UCLA people and USC and Oregon and Washington, and Big Ten experience is new to them. What places should I go? Who should I go see play? And I will always say, like, go to Iowa City. There's no reason not to. You don't know how good it is there, how much fun you're going to have, how welcome you're going to be. Always had great respect for Kirk Ferentz. The first time I ever did an Iowa game, I was working for another network, and I was a sideline reporter, and we worked. I can't even remember what the game was. Iowa somebody. And a couple days later, when people still, mailed things, I had something in my post box, and it was a handwritten letter. I'm hoping it was from Coach Ferentz. Maybe it was his secretary or whoever it was, but it was a handwritten note from Coach Ferentz thanking me for the work he did, the work I did, the research I did for, helping the Iowa program, and how nice it was to meet you. And it was one of those things, like, I kept reading it again. I'm like, that is the classiest thing that has ever happened to me in my business world, in being in sports television. And I was blown away that something like that would happen. And I put it up and had it on my little mantle. Like, yep, there's this note from Kirk Ferentz. So I always had this soft appreciation and love for what Iowa is, and that trip verified it. I love getting to Iowa, excited about it, and excited for them and the opportunity that's ahead of them that starts this Saturday.
Kirk's got the rep for those handwritten notes, so that probably wasn't a secretary. That was probably him for sure.
Good. That makes me extra happy.
Yeah, again, that full conversation with Rob Stone up on the Iowa's News Now YouTube channel. And thanks to him for the time. And again, the Triple Option podcast with him, Mark Ingram, and Coach Urban Meyer. Search for that wherever you get your podcast as well. It's a fun insight. They had an instant reaction to the college football playoff rankings last night, too, where Rob, I talked to him a little bit about just balancing podcast duties on top of all the hosting stuff he did. And so he's been forming opinions and throwing some stuff at the wall, and got a very funny reaction from Coach Meyer about one of his ideas for college football last night. So give that a listen. Circling back real quick before we get to Rebecca's forecast and our picks, you heard Cohen Entringer in the Bite not too long ago about there's another blackout this weekend. There have been rumors around, because Iowa usually posts like a pregame graphic and it shows somebody in a uniform and maybe reveals what they're going to be wearing on Saturday. They didn't do that this week. It's military appreciation game, so they're going to have the red, white, and blue Tiger Hawks like they usually do. That's the assumption. Kirk was asked about that on Tuesday. But you heard Cohen say another blackout this week. Trevor Lauk also said something like, I don't know how much I can say about it, because he was asked about alternate uniforms. So that feels like maybe, knowing our luck, by the time this gets posted Wednesday night, maybe there'll be something out there. But keep an eye on that. Maybe some special threads, special duds we were wearing at Kinnick on. It'd be the first time they'd have like true alternate uniforms since 23 against Minnesota, when they brought out the gold jerseys, which they haven't worn since. Yeah,
they just do the pant alteration color,
which is cool. I like the all black there, but yeah, maybe a different blackout
in honor of the Ducks coming to town. The team that just changes their uniform every game.
That's I mean, that was part of their allure, right? I feel like when we were in high school and you're following like the Dennis Dixon and Darren Thomas teams out there, the Joey Harringtons. I mean,
I was going to say that because he was on the cover of NCAA 2003.
NCAA 2003, yeah, that's
played with the Ducks. They had a running back too. I can't remember his name there that I would just abuse other teams with.
Michael James?
I was
before that.
That was like 7 years before that.
Yeah. It is interesting. I was talking to somebody about Oregon the other day, just how much like it's kind of standard now for so many teams across all levels of all sports to do it. But like Oregon having alternate helmets and jerseys felt so weird and unique and strange for a long time. I mean, people always kind of loved it, and that was their thing. But so many other teams do it now that it doesn't even seem like that strange for them to be the team that changes their look every game.
The only difference is they do it like every single game. Yeah. I feel like they're never in a repeat, which is cool. And I'm sure the players, like changing up the threads. But I do enjoy Iowa wearing their home uniforms. Obviously, I've loved a lot of their alternate uniforms too. So we'll see. We'll see if we like it.
It's going to be interesting, yeah. Whatever it is, and no matter what, I'm curious what Oregon's going to wear on the road, because they aren't a team that just changes it up at home. So certainly going to be interesting there, and it's going to be an interesting day weather-wise at Kinnick. Meteorologist Rebecca Kolpman, give us an idea what it's going to be like at Kinnick this weekend.
Hey there, guys. I wish I had some better news. Unfortunately, we do have some pretty cold air. It's going to be moving in for Saturday, and that's only kind of half of it, because we are going to have cloudy skies, and during tailgating time, it's going to be chilly. Temperatures are going to be in the low 40s, and it's going to be just a chill in the air. Thankfully, not a lot of wind, so that will help out. But by the time the game rolls around, clouds are hanging out in the sky. It doesn't really get much warmer, maybe some mid 40s during the game, and the issue is that it's likely going to be raining. So pretty uncomfortable, as it's going to be a cold rain. And we are watching that maybe by the end of the game and later on in the evening, there could even be a little bit of wintry weather, some snow or ice that starts to show up in the mix there. So definitely be prepared for the rain and the cold on Saturday.
Cool. Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, it's I was just talking to somebody today about coldest games I've been to at Kinnick. Last year against Nebraska was certainly right up there. 08 against Penn State, just because that damn wind was
that was bad,
whipping around like crazy.
I didn't bring a coat either to that one.
That was part of my problem.
Stupid
I was not poorly. I was very poorly attired there. Layered up against Nebraska. It was a little better last.
Does it hurt or help, you think, the weather?
You've got to like that, don't you?
That's it at home, yeah. No, I think, just given the fact that the last game out there, it was raining and Oregon struggled, I do think they were like, all right, even at 14 points, Wisconsin's offense is not going to do anything. We're just going to, run this ball into the ground. I do think, though, when you have a team like them that can spread it out and throw it deep, that does seem like it could give advantage to Iowa. Now, Oregon can also run the ball. They have like 5 running backs that could just pound it. Dangerous weapons right there. So, like, they might not be afraid to, play that style either. So we'll see.
Yeah, we might get a Big Ten West showdown, courtesy of the West
True
Coast.
West from the guys out west.
Well, let's turn our attention out west, too, as we get to our picks this week. We didn't recap, actually, because we didn't have a Sunday.
Well, I got them pulled up.
Oh, boy.
Another 0-4 week for Mitch. Owen went 3-1. Pretty good picks for you. And then I went 2-2.
And that Minnesota game was a 3-point.
Yeah,
again.
We all
another. Was that another overtime? Like, don't kick. You don't have to kick the extra point because I think they won that no tee.
No, it was 20-17.
Okay.
So Minnesota. We all had Minnesota covering 3.5. They won by 3. Owen was the only one to pick Ohio State to cover this big spread against Penn State. Indiana blew out Maryland, so that game was a cover, and then Nebraska, I think lost by 5, so they were covering.
Yep,
so.
That's what happened, Mike. Penn State for a while there. Played the first half of their lives, and then Ohio State showed why they're Ohio State. So I'm 17-22-1 this season, again with 2 0-4 weeks. Fun. Owen leads the way 20-19-1, coming off his own 0-4 week. So misery loves company sometimes. Mike close behind at 19-20-1. So let's turn our attention to this week. We'll start again out west. Northwestern heads to USC, the number 19 team in the college ball playoff rankings. Trojans are a 14.5-point favorite. That game's Friday night, 8 p.m. kick. And you can watch that on Fox 28. What do we think about the Wildcats' chances out west?
I'm still not overly impressed with a lot of Northwestern's wins this year, even though they've got 5 of them so far. I mean, they beat Western Illinois, who's not great. They beat Penn State when we thought that Penn State was still a legitimate team. That has turned out not to be the case. Beat Purdue 19-0. Louisiana Monroe, they beat UCLA by 3. I don't think that Northwestern is all that good. I could see USC covering this one.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of Northwestern that much either. I do think, though, they're disciplined, and they're at least a decent football team. I really see USC winning this game, but do they win by 3 scores? I don't think so. I'll take Northwestern to cover that big spread.
I'm going to do the same. That half point might be very valuable if this ends up being like a 28-14 game or something like that. So I'll take the Wildcats to cover. Again, I think Braun's done a heck of a job again with a team that nobody was really talking about and has kept them competitive. Then we head to Madison, Washington, the number 23 team in the college ball playoff rankings. 11.5-point favorite against the Badgers. Saturday, 3:30 kick on BTN. Can Wisconsin, coming off a bye, playing well in Eugene, can they keep it close against the Huskies, who, again, have some real dangerous players? If somebody else in this Big Ten race falters, the Huskies could be right there to jump on it.
I feel like Wisconsin can still win a game by the end of the year, but, oh, man, it's just so hard for me to pick against a team as good as Washington winning by a couple scores against Wisconsin. I think that I'll pick Washington.
Yeah, I think their defense played well against Oregon. Their offense was just – I was watching the game this morning just trying to do some prep on Oregon.
Yeah.
Like, can't complete a pass hardly. It looked like, Deacon Hill era stuff. So I'm going to go with Washington, even though this is a game where they're traveling a decent amount to come to Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's a tough one because, again, Wisconsin gets a bye week to hopefully put things together for their sake. Washington, we saw them go to College Park a couple weeks ago and get down big and had to rally back for a win there because they got the guys that can rally in Williams and Denzel Boston, and Coleman's a fantastic running back. It's so tough to take a team with that big of a spread on the road, but I'm going to do it. It's a heck of an effort by Wisconsin in rough conditions for Oregon, but the Huskies, again, you talk about Iowa's got a lot on the plate in November. So certainly Washington is too if somebody stumbles, so I'll take Washington to cover as well. Then you go back out west. UCLA is a 1.5-point favorite hosting Nebraska, again, without Dylan Raiola the rest of the way. That is also a Fox 28 game Saturday, 8 p.m. What do we think are the Huskers going to be like? They've got Emmett Johnson, who's as good as a running back as there is in the conference, but you don't have a quarterback now, or at least you're working to see who you got. What can they manage to do out in L.A.?
Yeah. Is it T.J. Lateef?
Yeah.
His last name? Yeah, boy, I was surprised at the number on this spread, but I suppose they think Dylan Raiola is worth that many points. I still think maybe this is a anti-fan tax for me just because I hate Nebraska so much. And I'm like, oh, no, I think I'll take Nebraska to cover that spread, and then I'll just celebrate if UCLA happens to beat them.
Yeah, this is a game I'm not even going to touch with a 10-foot pole and like a real betting aspect. Like, I just don't know what this Nebraska team is going to be without that quarterback because he was so much of their offense. I know Emmett Johnson's pretty good too. And UCLA, I mean, they were doing pretty well until I think their last game was against Indiana. Did they have a bye week last week?
Indiana's just, they're such a wagon.
That's true.
I really thought somebody would give some sort of resistance, but they're just, they're going to do what they want with everybody.
So until I see it from Nebraska with TJ Lateef, I'm going to take UCLA, and it's in the Rose Bowl. It's out west. That's always a tough trip, and my first two picks don't really, I'm not crediting those trips that the teams are making, but I will in this game. So I think UCLA is going to win that at home.
I think UCLA will win as well. I think, they are just night and day from what they were. Nebraska is about to be day to night of what they have been. And again, they just have such a tough time stopping the run that even when USC was struggling through the pass, Mayava and everybody else found yards on the ground, and I think that'll continue there. And then we turn back to Kinnick Stadium, 2:30 kick on CBS2. Oregon a 6.5-point favorite against the Hawkeyes. Can Iowa cover? Can Iowa win? Do the November success stories continue in Iowa City?
This is it's a tough spread. I still do think that Oregon is good enough to win this game, and I think they can win it by 7, so I'll take Oregon to cover.
I've been debating this one. Obviously, it's tough. I want Iowa to win so much. I want to get that top 10 monkey off your back. Watching Oregon, I just think they're so talented. I think they're going to be able to win. So I think I'm going to take them, but I wouldn't shock me if Iowa did come out on top. But I will just go with Oregon.
I'm going to take Iowa. I'm going to take Iowa to cover. I don't know if they win. I think they can keep it within 6. Whether it's 23-17, something like that. It just feels different. It feels different. This is an Oregon team that we've seen, again, that Indiana template, maybe both sides. What Iowa was able to do against Indiana, maybe left on the plate, what Indiana was able to do against Oregon. And you get a week to prep for them, too. Oregon gets the same prep work as well. But I think it could be a special night in Iowa City. So there's our picks right there. And we'll see how everything goes. And that should do it here from DuPaco Studios here at Broadcast Park. Any final thoughts about just the weekend ahead in Iowa City? We've got plenty of high school football playoffs to cover on the Eastern Iowa OT, but this is November football. It always feels a little different.
Side tangent that I'll get back to Iowa in a second, but it's funny just thinking about do you guys remember how good Iowa State used to be in the month of October when Brock Purdy was there, and then just like the month of October that they've had this year? Boy, Iowa State has fallen off a cliff this season. It is crazy. But for the Hawkeyes, I don't know. I keep going back to it, but it's like I think Hawkeye fans should, again, be grateful for playing relevant, important, nationwide relevant games with still 1 month of the season left. Like, that is a fun position to be in that you're not going to get every single year and that not every team gets to experience every year. And so having that aura around this team at this point is something to enjoy and appreciate, because you just never know, like, what it's going to be next year or 2 years from now. Like, are they going to keep this momentum going forward? Is it going to fall backwards? You just never know. So games like this are just fun to experience the atmosphere around an event like this.
Yeah, when's the next time they're going to get a top 10 team in the month of November with 2 or fewer conference losses on the schedule? You look at Kirk Ferentz's November success. You're hoping that trend continues. Past decade or so, though, like, a lot of these late season games were against the Big Ten West when, the last 5 years of it, there weren't a lot of highly ranked teams when you played your Ohio States and your Michigans and your Penn States earlier in the season. So you didn't get those late season games. So it will be a special atmosphere. Really hope Kinnick is rocking. I was thinking about going, but the tickets are a little expensive, so I'm like, I'm going to pass this time. I went to Indiana and didn't quite go out so well. So,
and as much as it's important for this season's results, I do feel like games like this can be important for even future seasons for Iowa in terms of recruiting, just being able to show what you can do with the nation watching you and keeping in the CFP conversation. I mean, that just helps, I think, recruiting wins here and there for high school players to know, like, all right, this is a team that actually is getting talked about in November and is getting talked about as a CFP contender. That plays huge into recruiting future wins.
And back to the weather, Brett McMurphy tweeted this out today. The betting total dropped from 44.5 to 40.5. So as we get closer, the weather's not looking like it's going to help either offense. I still think that benefits Iowa. So maybe my pick is wrong. Hope it's wrong. Hope the Hawks can come out and, beat Oregon.
And I think the fans will still turn out because when in Rome or when in Iowa City,
and extra layers.
Yep, that's what you do. Yeah, we'll throw trash bags or grocery bags on the cameras as well, and we'll be prepared for whatever Mother Nature brings to Eastern Iowa, as it's wont to do in November. Again, huge thanks to Rob Stone for the time earlier today. That full conversation with him, it's like 25 minutes, is up on the Iowa's News Now YouTube channel. And again, check out all of our interviews from Tuesday in Iowa City with the players. And we'll be back here Sunday checking in on whatever happens at Kinnick on a top 10 stage and a top 25 matchup across the board. The games you want to play in November. So big thanks to Erica for running the show today. For Mike and Owen, I'm Mitch. We will see you Sunday on the next edition of Eye on the Hawks.
At DePaco Credit Union, we value your health and happiness as much as your financial well-being. We encourage the volunteer spirit by providing DePaco employees with the tools and resources to help grow our communities and support the causes that matter to us. We believe that giving back not only strengthens the places we call home, but also enhances our overall well-being. Well-being is the key to a life worth loving. So when you think about yours, remember that DePaco can help you be well.